Hello, this is Adam for RealHomeRecording.com. I'm going to talk to you about the 5 biggest impacts on audio quality. Number 1 is technique. How you gain stage, where you position your microphone, where you position your performer in the room, what format you record to. I'll tell you a little story. Back when I started recording audio into a computer back in 1998, or was it 97? Either way, I set my sample rate and bit depth to, was it 22 kilohertz, 8-bit. You could still do that at that time. Now, why did I do that? Because at the time there was a format called Real Audio, and Real Audio, if you downloaded it, you could see what format it was encoded at, which was a lot of times 8-bit, 22 kilohertz, sometimes even less, 15 kilohertz. So I assumed that your final format had to be whatever that was, and that was the proper format to record at. Turns out I was dead wrong. Noisy, dull sounding audio was the result, and eventually I learned my lesson. But that's like one of the mistakes that you make early on when you don't know any better. So you're going to make mistakes, and that's a part of your technique. And unfortunately, no matter how good my mic was, no matter how I positioned it, the recording format absolutely mattered. The second impact on audio quality is the source. So your instruments, how high quality are they, or how low quality they are? How good are your performers? If they don't know how to play in time, on rhythm, if they're hitting the wrong notes, if they're not hitting any notes at all, if they're a terrible player, that's what's going to be recorded. That's the truth. There's no way around that. The acoustics of your room, big impact. How much noise? If some car decided to drive by and was blasting music with a very thick tailpipe, that would pick up on my microphone. And if there was screaming kids in the background, if there was a loud air conditioner or a loud heating system in this room, you would probably hear it. Electrical noise, that's the worst you can get, because a lot of times it's hard to detect where that's coming from. You may have just heard me tap on the tablet. All kinds of things. The source matters a lot. Huge impact on audio, obviously. Number 3, the choice of microphone. This is why professional studios have a very large variety of microphones. Unfortunately, there is not one microphone that can record every source well. You need microphones that sound good on a snare drum, good on an acoustic guitar, good on drum overheads, good for a kick drum. There's all kinds of different musical sources, especially with vocals. Man, let me tell you, vocal microphones, everybody sounds different, so different microphones will sound better or worse depending on which one you choose. So it's really crazy how the quality of your microphone and the choice of your microphone will impact the audio quality. I wish that wasn't the case. I wish there was just one microphone I could suggest. The one that comes to mind is a Shure SM57. That sounds good on a lot of sources, but on a lot of sources, it just will not work very well. So there's no perfect microphone. But yeah, that's probably the closest one to a microphone that's universal. But again, I would not record acoustic guitar with that and expect it to be able to pick up detailed sound like, say, a small diaphragm condenser would, or for that matter, using an SM57 as an overhead microphone. Probably a bad idea. You could get away with it, especially with some high shelf boosts, but it'll never have the detail of condenser microphones. And that's the same thing with vocals. Yeah, certain ones will sound better, but anyway, let me go to the next topic. Preamps, equalizers, compressors, and other types of outboard gear. Absolutely, these have an impact on the sound. My opinions change on preamps over the years. Certainly your cheap preamps are going to sound bad. They're going to sound noisy. They're going to sound dull. They're not going to sound as detailed as your higher end preamps. And preamps do have an effect on quality. Not a huge effect that a lot of people like to think they do. But of course, if you're buying the cheapest ones, they're going to sound bad. And yeah, you're not going to want that. Equalizer. There's a reason I record flat. All the EQs that I own aren't really that great. So I'm going to save that for my better equalizers in the box. But you better believe if I had access to some high-end preamps, like an API 550A or a Neve 1073 or 1084, or what's the other one I like? The Electra from Kush, or is it Kush? I don't know. Electra, yeah, I think it's called, I know it's called the Electra, but anyway, another one is a Pultec. I would love to have a Pultec EQ. So many different things I would love to have, but realistically, I'm not recording big name bands. I very rarely record music as it is, and it doesn't make any sense for me to own all that expensive gear with the type of things that I record. So, but you better believe if I was recording bands and if I was recording music and people were paying me on a daily basis, absolutely I would own that gear. It would make sense. As far as compressors are concerned, again, the same thing. I would love to own an LA2A, an 1176 before recording that audio into the converter. But realistically, where am I gonna come up with $6,000, and where would that make sense? Because okay, if I was having people record and they were recording for $300 a day, over a 10-day period, I could buy one of those things, although that would, I would probably increase my rates at that point because I would have better gear. Point being, unless you're a studio where it makes sense to buy that gear, it doesn't make sense to buy that gear unless you are recording people or you have the money. Maybe you're rich, In that case, hell, buy everything. Why not, right? But again, in the box compressors sound pretty good, so I don't really see a reason at this point at my budget level to buy that type of gear. It just doesn't make any sense. Finally, the smallest impact on audio quality, but yeah, it matters, but not as much as the other stuff. Converters and word clocks. Converters do make a difference. I hear the difference. It's subtle, but it's there. Again, not night and day, but there's definitely a difference in the main thing I noticed as far as the DAC is concerned, the digital to analog converter, is that my low end has like more room to breathe. It doesn't sound like this. It's kind of weird to describe it this way, but this is how I hear it. The sound doesn't come across as coming out of the speakers. It has like more of a three-dimensional characteristic to it. Again, not a night and day difference where most people will even notice, but I did notice the subtle difference between the built-in converters in the computer sound card versus the one in the Audient ID14 interface, which has like some I don't even remember, Burr Brown, I forget the model number, but it's the same one that was in high-end converters from a few years ago. So I think they're pretty good. A lot of people were interesting when it comes to things like converters, because if you have an interface that's $1,000 and they had those converters, oh, they sound fantastic. But now that something that's under $300 has the same converter, they have a different perception of that. Funny how that works, right? But yeah, converters and word clocks have the small, word clocks used to be a big issue back, let's say in the 80s when everything wasn't great, maybe even in the early 90s, late 90s and onward. Word clock jitter problems were pretty much a thing of the past. Certainly if you're using a bunch of different things and you need to synchronize them, the word clock quality will come into play there. But at that point, I'm hoping you're using high-end gear that has a BNC word clock output and not something like an ADAT. Well, not that ADAT's bad, but to synchronize a bunch of different interfaces, you probably want something pretty high-end with the word clock, because that will impact, I don't know about quality, but it'll impact synchronization, which you can run into other issues that you wouldn't have otherwise. So again, the lowest impact though, if you have an interface and that's all you have is one interface, the word clock quality is not going to kill you. They're not putting, even cheap word clocks are good, or great really. Converter quality, again, there is subtle differences. but not night and day. You know, positioning your microphone, having a really high quality microphone, a better preamp is going to make the difference, and a better quality instrument, a better singer. You know, there's a girl that I watch on Facebook who sings with her iPhone, and she sounds amazing. If I put her in front of a quality microphone, I don't even, you know, we're done. We're done at that point. It's like, you know, this girl, if she sounds good on the iPhone microphone, you know, but you put me in front of a fancy microphone and sing, it's going to be horrendous. So again, source, microphone, biggest impact, acoustics, all that stuff. This is all things I've learned over the years. I definitely at one point thought other things mattered more than other things, but at this point I've been recording audio for way too long. I've been recording professionally. I put that at around 2006, 2007. So 9-10 years with using higher end microphones and things, and all that other stuff that that just takes forever to get right a lot of times, and sometimes you can't